Welcome to Ask Me Anything. Your chance to ask the IT Pro TV subject matter experts questions live. Here's your host, Don Pizzette.
All right, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome back to Ask Me Anything, the show brought to you by IT Pro TV, where you, the viewers, get a chance to ask our subject matter experts really any question that you happen to come up with. You know, in the IT world, we're all studying, learning new things, working with new technologies, and as we do, lots of questions come up. Sometimes you got somebody there to help you, but oftentimes you just have a book, an FAQ, or some other kind of manual, and boy, are they not all that helpful. So our experts are here to pick up the slack, and today I'm actually really fortunate to have Miss Jo Peacock here in the studio with me. Jo, thanks for joining us.
That's okay. It's great to be here, Don. How are you?
I am doing just well. And, you know, for our viewers, you've been on the show several times. Most of them know you. I always say that Jo is our resident service policy project, just our font of knowledge on how the way.
I thought you were going to say something else there. I didn't think it was going to be complimentary.
Many things. But no, so just to help our viewers to understand, can you summarize kind of your area of expertise for us?
Oh, yeah. No. Not very easily. Yeah, it's governance, to be perfectly honest. I look at not just IT governance, but organizational governance. I mean, sure, we started off certainly here at IT Pro TV concentrating on, obviously, IT, and you know, we're IT professionals. But nevertheless, over the past few years, it's true to say that governance has kind of morphed and evolved into sort of more of an organizationally based methodology and a mindset as well, because we see that IT is embedded into absolutely everything that an organization does now. So, you know, we tend to look at governance not just from an IT perspective, but also from the business as a whole now.
Yeah, and it is it's really important. I know I've made jokes before about how what Jo does is specialize in teaching us bureaucracy, and as an IT guy, a lot of times I look at that from a negative perspective, but there actually is a very useful role for a lot of this stuff. It is important, and it's saved a lot of people's bacon over the years. So we are seeing this big trend in companies implementing better IT governance, or just governance as a whole, really. And so for this episode of Asks Me Anything, we've gathered up the questions that have come in from the field that center around that area, and we're going to be pitching them over here to Jo. But I do want to remind you, the viewers out there, if you have questions, even right now, live during the show, you can jump on Twitter, throw out your question, and stick on hashtag AskSMEAnything. That's AskSME anything. Throw it on there. Our social media team collects those, and we get the questions. If it's live during the show, we'll answer it right now. If it's later on, we'll just collect it and answer it the next time we're on. So definitely don't hesitate to throw those questions out there. And also a quick reminder, if you're an IT Pro TV subscriber, swing by the site, go to itpro.tv, and up in the menus at the top, you'll see the Q&A section. Those are our Q&A forums. Post your question there. We also monitor that. We prioritize those questions, make sure they get answered first, but we do make the best effort to get to everybody's question. So please don't hesitate to throw those out there. That's what keeps this show going. All right, so without any further ado, we'll jump into our first question of the day. This one coming at us from Twitter, and it is, how can I learn ITIL concepts in a few days? This is a cool question, Jo, because I remember the story you told me. When I got started with ITIL, it was ITIL version 3, and you told me with ITIL version 2, how many books were there?
Oh, well, with ITIL version 2, there were 7 books, but there were only 2 that we actually concentrated on.
Oh, that's not so
to
bad.
be honest. Yeah,
well, what am I thinking of then? When there were like 40 books at one point.
Oh, yeah,
wasn't
that
there?
was version 1.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, version 1 was 44 books.
And so that would be a nightmare to pick up. And
44 books written by academics as well.
And how many books are we at now?
We are at, in version 3, which is 2011's our latest version, we are at 5 books plus practitioner and plus sort of foundation. So it's 1 book per life cycle phase, but we've also got foundation, which kind of gives us an overview of everything. And we've also got practitioner as well, which looks at practical sort of implementation of ITIL. So 5 official, 7.
So the body of knowledge, it's pretty big, right?
Yes.
But if somebody needs to get in quick and we need to learn, like the question says, if I've got to learn ITIL concepts and I've only got a few days, what's the best approach?
Best approach, to be honest, I mean, we do have an overview in our course library. That's not really going to help you learn ITIL. I'm going to be honest about that. It's going to give you a really, really quick overview. An ITIL foundation course, if you were to do a classroom course, it would usually take 2.5 days. You can, if you wanted to, try and sort of cram it a little bit more and take a test maybe a little bit later. But we have a full foundation course available in our library, a version 2011 course that you can take to suit your particular time frame and to suit your calendar. So that's probably the best way I can tell you to learn ITIL really quickly. People say to me, oh, but I can get hold of an ITIL Foundation handbook. I can get onto Amazon and I can buy it. And I think it's less than $20 or it's about £12, something like that. And yes, you can. But then I always tell people, that I just tell them one little fact, really, and I ask them a question. And I'm going to ask Don the same question now. I'm sure that at some point in time in your life, Don, you have been to a movie where you have read a book before you've gone to the movie theater.
Absolutely.
Right. And have you ever sat there and thought to yourself, do you know what? This is not quite how it was in the book.
Absolutely. I think there's only one time have I ever found myself saying, wow, the movie was better than the book.
Right.
It's almost always the other way around.
Because when we read a book, we imagine things in our heads. Now, don't get me wrong, ITIL's not a storybook. There's no once upon a time. There's no happily ever after, and nobody dies, and there's no heroes in the middle of it either. But, when you read a book, you put your own interpretation on it. And when you go to the movies, then that movie producer or director has put their own interpretation on it as well. What I'm here to do is to make sure that the interpretation that you take away from the book is actually the interpretation that was intended. So I'm here to make sure that you take away the right interpretation from the book. So yes, sure, you can read the book if you want to. However, it's going to be really easy for you to misinterpret some of the concepts. So I always say, take a look at what we've got online. We've got a fully comprehensive ITIL Foundation series in our course library. It's available to you. Download it. Take a look at the course material that accompanies it as well. And that is going to give you enough information to get a good overview of ITIL very quickly as well.
Now, Joe, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to prioritize one of my own questions because I'm curious about something. I've worked in a few ITIL environments, and several years ago, I did the ITIL version 3 foundation, right? So, went, got certified. I never went beyond that. I didn't do the higher levels. But more recently, they launched the ITIL Practitioner, and I don't think I ever fully understood what the difference between ITIL Foundation and ITIL Practitioner is, because to me, it seems like they're both giving you that introductory glance of ITIL. So can you answer that for me? What is the difference in those two?
You're completely wrong.
Nice.
That's all I'm going to say to you. You're completely
so
wrong.
I'm on my normal course.
No, it doesn't. ITIL Practitioner will not teach you anything about ITIL. ITIL Practitioner will help you to implement ITIL. That's what it will do. The reason that ITIL Practitioner came about was because the industry sort of feedback that we had was that people could get right the way through to ITIL Expert, and what it proved was that they could learn theory, and they knew a lot about the theory of ITIL. But then they'd go back to their office and they'd sit there and they'd go, well, I've got 5 books. I've learned a lot about the theory. Now what do I do? And that's where ITIL Practitioner comes in. So we pitched ITIL Practitioner at a level where you can do that course after your ITIL Foundation. I'd certainly recommend it after you've done at least one of the other intermediates, depending on what your area of expertise is. But it actually looks at the implementation of ITIL. So what we're doing in ITIL Practitioner is looking at the practical application of things like organizational change management. Don't just thrust a change on somebody because they're always going to resist. You've got to go out there and create a need and create a sense of urgency before you do that. We look at communication principles. We look at identifying needs. We look at identifying the right communication method to be able to communicate change with people. And so what we're doing there in Practitioner is really just giving you practical advice and guidance on how to implement what you've already learned. Now, if you haven't already learned it, then you can't implement it. And so ITIL Practitioner does not give you any more information over and above Foundation at all. It doesn't give you any more information than what you've already learned in the intermediates either. You're not going to learn about ITIL in Practitioner. What you're going to learn is how to implement it. So that means that you have to do at least the Foundation before you come on an ITIL practitioner course or before you watch the series. If you don't, then I'll be perfectly honest with you, then the qualification in the series is not going to mean a huge amount to you.
So I guess I got kind of lucky. Well, practitioner didn't exist at the time, so I guess it didn't really matter. But so I worked in an organization that already had implemented ITIL practices, and so ITIL Foundation was great for me. I learned what I needed, and I got in there. But if I were to go work somewhere now that didn't follow or didn't use that framework, then that's where practitioner would help me to actually get that implemented, to get that kind of off the ropes.
Definitely. And I always say to absolutely everybody, and we say this in ITIL Practitioner as well, if you're in an organization where something hasn't been implemented yet, start small. Keep it simple. You want to start with, a very, very simple approach. Find your biggest pain point. And it's again about creating that need. Find your biggest pain point. Find the area that really would benefit from some consistency in it. This is not about bureaucracy. I know that Don thinks this is red tape, right? But this is not about bureaucracy. This is just about being more efficient. So you're looking for an area where, you would benefit from more consistency and from more efficiency. And then start simple. You don't have to have a complex process, and you don't have to go out and spend millions of dollars on a tool either. That's not what you need to do. I'm not saying that you should go out and start creating elaborate spreadsheets in Excel, because I've seen people try and do that. Excel is not a database and it's not a call login system. So please don't use it for that. But nevertheless, keep it simple. Start off very, very small, but work out where you want to start first of all. And that's where practitioner is going to help you.
Excellent. Thank you for clearing that up for us. And let's take this moment to jump out to our next question coming at us from hashtag AskSMEAnything. And this is probably my favorite question of the week. We curate through a lot of these. This one came in via Twitter. Andy asked a question, which sadly is not the first time I've seen this question. Should ITIL die, Joe?
Wow.
people are polarized. And not everybody likes ITIL. What's your take on this?
I don't know what to say to that, to be perfectly honest. I don't know whether to be personally offended or not. No, I'm not offended in the slightest. Should ITIL die? Well, I could be really blunt and just say no. I can understand why people say that. And I'll tell you why I understand that. Because I hear people like you all the time who tell me that ITIL's about red tape and it's about bureaucracy. And, it's funny because when ITIL when version 1 came out, you were right, it was 40-odd books that were written by academics that were so prescriptive in their description of how certain processes should work and how organizations should work for best practice. And that, to be perfectly honest, it wasn't followed. And version 2 came out, and we concentrated more on efficiency and effectiveness in version 2. And we tried to give everybody sort of examples of this is what you should have in an organization. And what happened was people took these processes in a prescriptive way and said, oh, look, plug and play, this is going to resolve all my problems. And it didn't quite work like that. And what happened was it got a fairly bad reputation in some respects for increasing bureaucracy and for bringing in red tape and for bringing in, if you could see the change management process, I mean, I could write it out for you now in all of its steps, and it was huge. And so version 3 in 2011, we tried to move away from the prescriptive nature of it, and we tried to convince people that what you needed to do was adapt the processes to suit your requirements. Even so, what we're finding is that we got to a situation where people just don't know how to do that. And so they prefer a plug and play methodology because it's simple. But plug and play doesn't work. And what happens is it gets a negative reputation again because somebody takes a process that really is not relevant for their environment and then tries to make it fit, tries to sort of shoehorn it into the environment. And it's not going to work like that. And that's why ITIL gets a bad reputation. Now, we try to overcome that slightly with ITIL Practitioner by giving people some practical guidance on how you modify processes, how you can actually implement a process and look at the processes that you should concentrate on, like the ones that are your pain points, for instance. But nevertheless, I can understand that people will say, should ITIL die? It's past its best. And we've got other methodologies out there. We've got SIAM, we've got VeriSM that are out there as methodologies. And of course, ITIL is bringing out ITIL 4 as well, in a few months' time now. And, I can understand why people would say, oh, but we don't need all of that. Well, the simple answer is you need consistency in your processes. And ITIL will give you an ability to have consistency and to have efficiency in your processes. Even for a small organization, you mentioned about in some organizations, they don't have anything implemented and they don't know where to start. You've got to start implementing some processes. Otherwise, as an organization grows, you're going to end up with chaos, with the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing. How can you keep track of all of those broken PCs that are lying in a storehouse somewhere that, you don't know where they came from, and you don't know who they need to go back to, and you don't know, when they went off for repair, for instance. You need to have some consistent processes. I'm not going to tell you that ITIL is the be-all and end-all and that ITIL is absolutely perfect. But what I am going to tell you is you need something. You need some processes, and ITIL gives you a basis. So should it die? No, definitely not. Should you adapt it to suit your environment? Absolutely. And should you tailor it down and get rid of the processes that you don't need? Yes. Most definitely so. Don't look at it as a set of textbooks that tell you this is what you have to do, because that's not true at all. Everything should be tailored. And if tailored means instead of having incident and problem and request fulfillment, you just have one process that maybe splits into two to do some root cause analysis and that covers all of the rest of the service operation processes, that's fine. That's exactly what we want you to do. And that's the always been the challenge with ITIL, is that people have wanted to take it too prescriptively. So no, ITIL shouldn't die. Definitely not. ITIL will work for you as long as you're able to adapt it to suit your environment.
Yeah, and you see comments like this pop up pretty frequently, and I bet if we were to reach out to these individuals and have a conversation, you'd find where they probably tried to deploy the whole thing as one big set. Like, I'm going to do everything dictated in these manuals. And that's, first off, not a great idea. But secondly, no matter what framework, it's just too much to implement that much process change all at once. That's not a good idea.
The ITIL books are not, it's not a recipe. You're not making a cake here. It's not a recipe. It's not going to solve third world hunger, okay? It really, really isn't. You've got to do that yourself. This is just it's a guidance. It's a best practice framework. It doesn't mean it's good practice for you. It means it's best practice in the industry. And you have to make that best practice fit for you. This is not about a one-size-fits-all approach. It's not just one solution that's going to solve absolutely everything. And this is why we tried to bring in ITIL Practitioner as a guidance to help those implement ITIL. Because what we found was that the majority of people would do the qualifications and then they would go back to their environment and they'd say, I've seen this great process. It's going to work absolutely fantastically. And we've got 15 people in the organization and we've got a change management process that's got 37 steps in it. Great. I can see how that might be just a little bit too much. And that's why people think, like you say, they have this bad experience and then they think to themselves, no, I'm not giving that a try again. And that's where we end up with those sort of questions. ITIL's got its place. I always say that ITIL is just common sense written down. And when you ask a question like, should it die? Well, you're just saying, I don't need common sense anymore. Okay, then, fine.
So I know, like in the world of, I'm a PMP, so I know the prescriptive way of managing projects from the PMI. If somebody out there says, well, I hate the way PMI does things, there's alternatives. We can do things like Prince 2. So if somebody does just like legitimately dislike everything defined in ITIL, what would be like second place? What would be another framework we could move to instead?
Oh, now.
Or is there one? Maybe that's the only one that's complete.
Well, it is the only one that's complete. No, ITIL is not meant to be like that. So ITIL's not supposed to be prescriptive. So it's not a case of saying, oh, well, I don't like ITIL, let's move on to something else. It really should be a case of, well, I don't like ITIL, so let's see what bits I do like. And let's take the bits that I do like and let's make them work for our organization. There are other methodologies out there, don't get me wrong. I mean, we're looking at SIAM, which is, for those environments where we have an IT service provider, an internal service provider. It might just be one person. We call them a service integrator, and then lots of suppliers. So, when we look at sort of like software as a service, for instance. So like Microsoft are now providing that, and we've got Oracle that provide that sort of service as well. So the service integrator, as we call it, acts as more of a supplier manager, should we say, managing all of those suppliers. So there's one framework that will help you. We're also looking at VerySM as well, which is a fairly recent framework that's come into play. And that's not really a framework as such. What that's telling you there is we have the concept of a management mesh within VerySM, where we say, okay, let's take some of these practices that you've already been learning, and then let's go out into the organization and look at the simple fact, acknowledge the fact that IT is part of everything that we do now. You can't get into your building without IT. So let's think of us all as being part of one big service provider for our external consumer. And then let's look at how we integrate all of our management practices that we have and integrate them with each other to serve our external consumer better. So there isn't necessarily an alternative to ITIL, and nor do I think there needs to be an alternative to ITIL. What there needs to be is just a better understanding of the fact that ITILs shouldn't be prescriptive, and take it as an idea. That's what I really want you to do with ITIL, is just read through the publications, take a look at some of our courses and just say, okay, I like that idea. I'm going to apply that. This idea is not relevant to me. I don't really like that. I don't see this working. So I'm not going to utilize that. But I do like this element. And so I'm going to bring that into our organization. And that's how people should be thinking with ITIL, not in a prescriptive way at all.
All right, Joe, thanks for clearing that one up. And, that was a great question. I mean, it sounded kind of silly, but it really did lead into a feeling that a lot of people have out there, and we need to learn how to implement this properly and successfully. Joe, you mentioned that we have all that training in our course library. If you want to get in there and see what all is available, you can definitely check that out on IT Pro TV. But if you have questions right now, I encourage you to ask them. Jump onto Twitter, social media, jump onto our Q&A forums, throw them out there with hashtag AskSMEAnything, and we'll see those, get them answered by the ever-patient Joe Peacock. Our next question is coming at us from, I believe this one is also coming from Twitter. Brandon asks, who is eligible to sit for an ITIL exam, and how much do they cost?
Right, okay. Who's eligible to sit for an ITIL exam? Absolutely anybody. People ask me about why they should sit an ITIL exam, and one of the best answers that I can give you is about a common language. It's about understanding how everybody in the industry talks. It's about ensuring that we have the same the same language, the same terminology in use, and the same definitions. And it goes back to what I was saying about watching a movie and understanding, understanding what's written in a book versus what's actually on the screen in front of you. We all have our different interpretations, whereas looking at the ITIL courses and actually taking an ITIL exam will ensure that we've all got the same interpretation. But the best place to go if you want to learn more about the cost of the exams, now I don't know your currency, so I'm just going to assume that maybe you are in dollars, maybe? I mean, my first instinct would be pounds, I guess, but anyway.
They did say sit the exam, and that's not a U.S., we usually just say take an exam.
Yeah, I've heard people say write an exam as well,
yeah.
but not in Europe. We normally sit an exam in Europe, yeah. Yeah, we also write a test, I think, here in the US. But what I want to take you to, if I go in here, is I want to take you to a website called peoplecert.org, and hopefully if we can get that on a screen in front of you, here it is, it's just loading, and you'll see that it's peoplecert.org, by the way, not peoplecert.com. This is the examining body for ITIL, and what we'll do is we click on certifications, and you can click into IT governance and service management. I also noticed that they've got project management. They're separate from the other governance stream. But, oh, look, they've got a special offer on at the moment as well for ITIL Foundation. It looks as though they have, it says 10% off. But anyway, let's go in here and we go into governance and service management. Did that work? Yes, it did. And go into ITIL. And it will give us the, here we go, recent prices. So the ITIL Foundation, which is the first one that you have to do, you cannot take any of the other certifications until you have passed the ITIL Foundation. Now, as of January 2018, PeopleCert were the only examining board that is able to accredit you for ITIL. Okay, so there is nowhere else to go. There are other examining bodies out there like APMG and EXIN and ICEB, but as of January 2018, PeopleCert is the only examining body for ITIL. So we see here that ITIL Foundation at the moment is $314. It was $349 by the looks of things at one point in time. I suspect, and I don't know what the exchange rate is, and I suspect that if you log on to this from your country, it will probably give you your local local price in your local currency. PeopleCert are based in Greece, which means that their sort of local currency is in euros. I think it's euros at the moment. I'm not too sure what's going on with Greece right now in the economy, but I think possibly euros. So you'll see that ITIL Foundation is $314. And then once you've taken Foundation, we have ITIL Practitioner, and that is $469. And then you've also got the other intermediates here. Any one of these that you can take. $399 for what we call our life cycle intermediates. And then here we get into our capability intermediates, and they are $400 each as well. And then managing across the life cycle, I have to say, that is, yeah, that's incredibly good actually at $400 for that test, because that is the one that will give you the ITIL expert qualification. And then we've also got the ITIL Master, and the ITIL Master is one of those price on asking, because the ITIL Master is a 2-year qualification, and we do actually have a series covering the ITIL Master where I actually do explain in our course library how to achieve ITIL Master and how you can go about. You have to write a series of white papers, and so I do explain how to compile the white papers and how to submit them, etc. So we also have a 1-year Axelos membership, which now there was a time, and I'm not too sure whether this is still the case, so don't quote me on this. There was a time when if you passed any of the ITIL intermediates, then you had this 1-year Axelos membership thrown in for free. I do not know whether that is still the case, so don't quote me on that, but I do believe that was the case. So like I've said, as long as you take your ITIL Foundation first, then you can take any of the other qualifications after that. Now, you have to amass points, and every time you pass a test, you amass some points. So with the ITIL Foundation, you amass 2 points. And with the ITIL Practitioner, you also amass 2 points. And then with any of these intermediates, now it depends on which intermediates there are, but with service strategy and the life cycle phases through to design and transition and operation and CSI, you amass 3 points per exam that you have passed. Then with the capabilities, which is SOA and RCV and OSA and PPO, then you gain 4 points every time you pass a test. Now, you have to amass a total of 17. You can take them all if you want to, but you have to get to at least 17 points in order to be eligible to sit the MALC, that's managing across the life cycle. So once you have amassed, as I said, you have to amass that 17 points. Once you've amassed 17, then you're able to sit the managing across the life cycle test, and that will give you a further 5 points. And once you have got to 22, then you therefore become an ITIL expert. Now, one thing I will tell you is that you have to take the MALC class in order to become an ITIL expert. You can't just amass 22 points from all of the other intermediates. That won't work. You have to take that managing across the life cycle. But that, in a nutshell, is how you become an ITIL expert. And just while we're talking about the ITIL master, or while we're talking about certifications, I do get asked quite often about the ITIL master. What is the point in becoming an ITIL master? An ITIL master is a 2-year qualification, and I can tell you at this point in time that given that we are moving towards ITIL 4 right now in the next few months, ITIL master is a PhD equivalent. It's a 2-year qualification, and over the course of 2 years you have to sit a number of white papers, and each one of those papers are weighted depending on the subject that you decide that you want to sit. When people say to me, what's the point in becoming an ITIL master? If you are a CIO, if you are looking to, implement ITIL, if you're looking to get something on your resume, then the ITIL expert is more than enough for you. If you're in a position where you are a consultant or you are maybe a trainer, then ITIL Master is something that you may want to try and work towards, but it is not a particularly easy qualification. So I would recommend most people just to take the ITIL Expert. And I would also say that, we've got 4 coming up in a few months' time, and I would be very tempted to say to people now, I'd hold off with, trying to achieve too many qualifications until we know what's happening with 4. I know that your qualifications will still be valid for 4, but nevertheless, most people, when a new version comes out, want to start re-accrediting and start to take the new tests as well at that point in time.
Now, for people that are looking to take the exam and get certified, I do know that it's usually a great opportunity to take certification exams at some of the larger conferences, and there is a conference coming up. I have a reason for bringing this up. The ITSMF Fusion Conference is coming up in just a few weeks, right? It's in October, is it?
It is the September the 30th, right the way through to the 3rd of October. Yes, and in fact, look at that. I've even got it up there because, that's something that I kind of wanted to mention anyway. But yes, Fusion is the IT Service Management Foundation Conference, and it really is 3 days where we just get to, come along. You get to hang out with us, and it's 3 days where we get to discuss sort of new updates to service management, new frameworks, for instance, very SM, where we get to discuss, the new technology and new trends within service management.
Yep, and IT Pro TV will be there, as well as a number of other organizations are going to be there. It's a great place to network and meet people. We're going to have an IT Pro TV meetup, so if you want to get a chance to meet Jo and ask her questions in person, it's a great opportunity. And for those of you that are looking to learn more about ITIL and other service management frameworks, there will be a ton of stuff there.
Well, I have some more exciting news, actually.
What could possibly be more exciting than a chance to hang out with you?
Well, yeah, there is that, I guess. Yeah, but we have, one of our accrediting. What do we call them? Accrediting bodies, I guess. One of the examination institutes. Is partnering up with us at our booth in Fusion, and that's EXIN. Now, EXIN will accredit you for, and in fact, we have the courses to accredit you for Agile Scrum Master, ISO 20000, ISO 27001. What else have we got? Very SM, SIAM. So EXIN are going to be partnering up with us at our booth, which is sort of really exciting news. And so you get to take a look not only at our course library, but also at our future course development as well, which we are going to be doing sort of, hand in hand with EXIN as our partner in the US.
Yeah, we've really been trying to strengthen that partnership. We've had a lot of great opportunities. We've created a really impressive library of content now on our site, and to see that accredited is just a great way to get in there and learn. If you are feeling overwhelmed with the amount of different certifications and content available, I don't blame you. Feel free to throw your questions out there, just like this one, by using hashtag AskSMEAnything. That's AskSMEAnything. You can do that on Twitter, or you can jump into the Q&A forums on itpro.tv. If you're going to be in St. Louis for the ITSMF conference, be sure to reach out. Check out. It's a great chance to just meet, network, And like I said, we will be doing a meetup there. More information will come out closer to that date. It's just a chance to meet up at a restaurant or bar or something like that afterwards, and just have a chance to do some networking. So another couple things I'd like to mention here is that we do have some webinars coming up at itpro.tv. If you want a chance to get in and learn, these are available free of charge to anyone in the entire world, and even off-world if you happen to be there. As long as you have an internet connection, you can jump over to itpro.tv/webinars and see webinars that we've got coming up, as well as ones that have already passed. Coming up, though, we have a couple of good ones. We have the DAAS, or Desktop as a Service, Rumors and Realities webinar coming up. Mr. Ronnie Wong is going to speak about what DAS is and whether or not it's ready for prime time. That's a good one. And then I have a webinar with Mr. Justin Dennison coming up on September 20th, which is the top 5 DevOps blunders. A lot of DevOps projects are going out there and making the same mistakes over and over again. We're going to highlight 5 of those big mistakes and help you learn from other people's mistakes instead of making them yourselves. And keep in mind that if you can't attend the webinar live, you can still watch it recorded. After a webinar is filmed, they just go right on down here. You can scroll down, you'll see our on-demand webinars. You can go back and review, watch, see, and learn. There's a lot of great stuff in there. Definitely a great opportunity to get more information, all available to you free just by going to itpro.tv/webinars. Definitely check it out. And while you're there, swing by the main itpro.tv website. Take a look at our course library. You'll be shocked and amazed at the amount of content available, especially if you're looking for things like ITIL, SIAM, VeriSM, or we don't have VeriSM just yet, right? Or no,
yeah, we do. We're actually in the middle of recording that right now. It's been submitted for accreditation to the examining board. So yeah, we've got that in play. We've also got all of the project management courses there as well. So we've got PMP, we have Prince 2, we've got Agile, Fundamentals, Agile Scrum Master, Agile Product Owner, and you mentioned DevOps just then. Obviously, you and Justin are looking at this from a development side. I'm going to be looking at this from a methodology and sort of service management perspective as well, and that's the next course that's in our pipeline, to be honest. So Justin and I are going to be working on that ourselves in just a few weeks.
And, I'm going to take a moment here and brag for Jo, because she won't brag herself. But at ITPro TV, I filmed the original PMP content that we had in our library a month or 2 ago. Jo came in and refilmed it, and I can tell you it is just light years better than the content that I filmed. So if you watched my content and liked it, definitely check out hers. It is way better. If you're looking to learn PMP, get certified, her content is amazing. Definitely check that out.
Yeah, but we have roller coasters in ours.
Yeah, I didn't have roller coasters. We did an arcade machine for our project, which is as fun as a roller coaster. Nobody barfs on an arcade machine.
Well, I don't know.
We can try. That'll be our new goal. All right. Well, Jo, thank you for being on the show with us today.
Well, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
And I'll just do one more reminder to you guys out there. Please keep your questions coming. That's what powers this show. Jump over to social media. Throw your question out there with hashtag AskSMEAnything. And if you'd like to learn more about IT Pro TV, check out go.itpro.tv/AskSMeAnything. You'll learn about us, and you'll see an opportunity to get 30% off your subscription for you or your entire team. You can do a team demo and see all of the team features available right there on itpro.tv. It's a great way to learn and get information to the people who need it. All right, well, thank you all for watching. Signing off for IT Pro TV and Asks Me Anything, I've been Don Pizzette.
And I'm Jo Peacock.
And we will see you next time.
Are you enjoying Ask Me Anything? Then be sure to check out our other podcast, Technado, where we take a look at the most interesting tech news stories from the week and interviews from people in the industry. Here's the latest episode, and here's the full playlist. And as always, be sure to subscribe to IT Pro TV's channel. IT Pro TV!